Imagine a man standing in the middle of a burning building, not running, not screaming, just standing there, breathing slowly, watching the flames. He turns to his students and says, "This is just wood burning. The wood doesn't matter. What matters is how I choose to feel about it." This really happened. His name was Zeno of Citium. He was a merchant who lost everything in a shipwreck. He walked into a bookshop in Athens with nothing in his pockets. He read a few lines of an old philosopher, and he decided to completely rebuild his mind from scratch. What he created changed the world forever, not with an army, not with gold, with ideas. Ideas so powerful that Roman emperors and slaves used the exact same philosophy to survive their days. Ideas so sturdy that modern therapy is still built on them today. Ideas so simple that a child can understand them. And ideas so deep that great scholars spent entire lifetimes exploring them. The Stoics believed one thing above everything else. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. That's it. That's the whole thing. And yet somehow, from that single idea, they built an entire way of living. A way of working, loving, grieving, leading and dying. A way of being human in a world that never stops being difficult. Tonight, we're going to walk with these remarkable people. We'll sit with Zeno in his bookshop. We'll walk beside Marcus Aurelius as he commands the most powerful empire on earth, while privately admitting he is struggling. We'll listen to Epictetus, a man who was literally owned by another person, teach his students that no one can truly own a human mind. We'll discover what they ate, how they slept, what made them laugh, what made them cry, and why they still matter to you lying here tonight in your world that is so different from theirs, and yet somehow so exactly the same. Because here's what nobody tells you about the Stoics. They weren't cold. They weren't robots. They cried at funerals. They loved their children. They felt fear and anger and longing, just like you do. They just learned something most people never learn. They learned that the storm outside doesn't have to become a storm inside. And that is a skill worth knowing. If this is helping you find your way to sleep, that's exactly why this channel exists. Maybe subscribe and leave a comment. Tell me where you're listening from tonight and what time it is. I read every single one. Someone in Melbourne at 2 in the morning. Someone in Toronto in the dark. Someone in London with the rain on the window. All of us drifting towards sleep with the same ancient ideas keeping us company. Part 1. The shipwreck that started everything. The sea off the coast of Cyprus was calm that morning. Zeno of Citium stood at the bow of his merchant ship watching the horizon. He was around 30 years old. He came from a good family. His father was a merchant who traded purple dye, which was the most expensive color in the ancient world. Only kings and rich men wore purple. So Zeno's family was doing well. The ship carried a cargo of dye, enough to make Zeno wealthy for life. Then everything changed. We don't know exactly what happened. Ancient sources say the ship sank. Some say it was a storm. Some say rocks. Some say pirates. But we know the result. Zeno swam to shore with nothing. No cargo, no ship, no money, no plan. He was in Athens, the greatest city in the ancient world. Athens around 300 BCE was like ancient New York. It was loud, crowded, and full of people who thought they were very important. Philosophers argued in the squares. Politicians gave speeches in the markets. Rich men walked past beggars without looking down. Merchants sold everything imaginable. Zeno walked into this city soaking wet and broke. He found a bookshop. Bookshops in ancient Athens were interesting places. They weren't quiet like modern bookshops. People gathered there to talk, to argue, to read aloud to each other. The bookseller would read passages from scrolls to customers who might buy them. Zeno sat down. The bookseller was reading from a text about Socrates, about the great philosopher who walked Athens barefoot, who had nothing and said he was the happiest man alive, who was put to death by his own city for asking too many questions, and who, walking toward his execution, turned to his friends and said, "Do not weep for me." Zeno listened. Something cracked open inside him. He looked at the bookseller and asked, "Where do I find men like this?" The bookseller pointed out the window. Right across the road, walking very fast, was a man in a rough cloak. He walked so fast because people always tried to stop him and ask him questions, and he didn't always want to stop. His name was Crates of Thebes. He was a philosopher. Zeno ran after him. He followed him down the street. Crates kept walking. Zeno kept following. Finally, Crates turned around and said something like, "Well, you might as well walk with me then." That walk changed everything. Zeno spent years learning from Crates. Then he learned from others. He studied every school of philosophy in Athens. He was relentlessly curious. He would sit with any teacher who had something to offer. He took notes. He asked questions. He disagreed respectfully. He thought deeply. And slowly he began to build something new. He started teaching in a public place. Athens had many covered walkways where people gathered to escape the sun and rain. The Greek word for these walkways was stoa. The most famous one where Zeno taught was called the Stoa Poikile, or the Painted Porch, because its walls were painted with scenes from famous battles. Zeno taught there every day, walking back and forth under the painted walls. His students were called Stoics, after the porch. The word Stoic did not originally mean emotionless. It did not mean grim or cold or tough. It just meant someone who learned under the painted porch. But what they learned there would outlast the porch, the paintings, the city, and the empire that came after. Zeno taught his students the following thing. Look around you. What can you control? Not the weather, not other people's opinions, not whether you get sick, not whether your ship sinks. What can you control? Only this, the little space inside your own head, your thoughts, your choices, your attitude, your response to whatever happens. He called this the hegemonikon, the ruling faculty, the captain of the ship that is you. Everything outside that captain, he called it externals, things outside your control. The Stoics were not the first people to say this, but they were the first to build an entire way of life around it, a complete system, something you could practice every day, something you could use when you were a king, something you could use when you were a slave, something you could use right now, lying in the dark with your thoughts spinning. Zeno taught for decades at the Stoa. He became famous across the Greek world. Even the king of Macedonia sent him a letter asking him to come and be a court philosopher. Zeno politely said no. He was happy walking under his painted porch. When he died at an old age, the Athenians gave him an unusual honor. They put up a bronze inscription that said, "Because he made his life a model in agreement with his teachings. Not because he was powerful, not because he was rich, because he lived what he taught." That was the highest praise. Part 2. What the Stoics actually believed. Let's sit down and think about this together. Imagine you are a child, maybe 5 or 6 years old, and you fall down and hurt your knee, and it hurts, really hurts. You have 2 choices. You can cry and say, "This is the worst thing that has ever happened to me. Everything is ruined. My knee hurts and life is terrible." Or you can look at your knee and say, "This hurts. It will stop hurting. What do I do next?" The Stoics were not saying, "Don't feel the pain." They were saying, "Don't let the pain become bigger than it is." They called unnecessary suffering about things outside your control passion in the old sense. Not passion like love and enthusiasm. Passion in the Greek sense meant being tossed around by your emotions like a ship in a storm, being passive, being pushed around. The Stoics wanted to teach people to be the captain, not the ship. But here's what everybody gets wrong about Stoicism. They think it means don't feel anything. That is completely wrong. The Stoics had a word for the emotions they did want to cultivate. They called them eupatheiai, good feelings, and they listed them carefully. Joy instead of pleasure-seeking. Joy is calm and deep. Pleasure-seeking is restless and leads to emptiness. Caution instead of fear. Caution is smart and useful. Fear is a story you tell yourself that makes you smaller, wishing well instead of longing. You can hope good things happen to people you love, but clinging and longing makes you suffer when things change. See the difference. The Stoics were not saying, have no feelings. They were saying, have the right kind of feelings. The ones that make you more free, not less. The ones that come from wisdom, not from panic. They also believed deeply in something called logos. It's a Greek word that means reason or pattern or the underlying intelligence of the universe. The Stoics looked at a tree growing toward the light. They watched how the seasons always turned. They noticed how rivers always found the sea. And they said, there is a pattern here, a reason, an intelligence built into the fabric of everything. They called this intelligence the logos. And they believed that humans were the only creatures who shared in it. That our ability to reason, to think, to choose, was a spark of this universal fire inside us. This is why they cared so much about reason. Not because feelings were bad, but because reason was our most sacred gift. The thing that connected us to the universe itself. If you let fear drive your choices, you were betraying that gift. If you let anger make your decisions, you were giving up what made you human. But if you paused, breathed, and chose your response with wisdom, you were living the way you were meant to live. The Stoics also had a beautiful idea about community. They believed in something they called the cosmopolis, the city of the world. Most ancient people thought like this: my tribe first, my city first, my country first. Everyone else is a stranger or an enemy. The Stoics said something radically different. Every single human being shares the same logos, the same spark of universal reason. Therefore, every single human being is your neighbor, your sibling, your equal. A slave and an emperor are made of the same stuff. A barbarian from the north and a Roman patrician both carry the same light inside them. This was shocking to hear in the ancient world, almost dangerous. But the Stoics meant it, and some of them lived it. Part 3. Epictetus, the man who could not be broken. If you want to understand the Stoics, you have to understand Epictetus. His story begins in darkness. Epictetus was born around 50 CE in a city called Hierapolis in what is now Turkey. He was born into slavery. Not as a punishment, not because he did anything wrong, simply because he was born in a world where some people were allowed to own other people. His name, Epictetus, literally means acquired. It was not even really his name. It was what you called something you had purchased. His owner was a man named Epaphroditus. Epaphroditus worked for the Roman Emperor Nero. He was a freedman himself, someone who had once been a slave and been given his freedom. And yet, he owned slaves of his own. The ancient world was full of such contradictions. Epictetus was allowed, we believe, to study with a Stoic philosopher named Musonius Rufus. This itself was unusual. Slaves were not typically given educations, but some owners did allow it, either out of genuine kindness or because an educated slave was more valuable. Whatever the reason, Epictetus learned. And while he sat in those philosophy lessons, he understood something that changed his life forever. Yes, Epaphroditus owned his body. His owner could tell him where to go, what to do, what to eat, when to sleep. His owner could even, by Roman law, hurt him. In fact, there is a story, possibly true, that Epaphroditus once twisted Epictetus's leg to hurt him, just because he could. And Epictetus looked at him calmly and said, "You are going to break it." Epaphroditus kept twisting. Epictetus said, "There, you broke it. Did I not tell you so?" This story may be legend, but it captures something absolutely true about how Epictetus understood himself. "You can hurt my body," he thought. "You cannot touch me. My body is a thing I live inside. It is not who I am." Epictetus divided the entire world into two categories: things within our power and things not within our power. Things within our power: our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our reactions, our inner life, our choices. Things not within our power: our bodies, our reputations, our property, what other people think of us, what other people do to us, whether we live or die. He called this the dichotomy of control. It is the foundation of Stoic practice. Here's why this was so powerful for a slave. If your freedom depended on the kindness of your owner, you were never truly free. Any moment, your life could change. Any moment, you could be sold, separated from your family, forced to do something terrible. A life built on things outside your control was a fragile life. But a life built entirely on your inner choices, that was a life nobody could touch. Epaphroditus eventually gave Epictetus his freedom. No one knows exactly why. Maybe because Epictetus had become genuinely remarkable. Maybe because Epaphroditus felt something when he looked at this man who couldn't be broken. Epictetus moved to Rome. He began to teach. Then a Roman emperor named Domitian, a paranoid and cruel man, expelled all philosophers from Rome. He thought they were dangerous. He was probably right. Epictetus moved to a small city called Nicopolis on the western coast of Greece. It was not fancy. It was not famous. But students came from everywhere to learn from him. He lived in a tiny house with almost nothing in it. He had a rough cloak, a mat to sleep on, and an iron lamp. When someone stole his lamp, he is said to have shrugged and said, "Tomorrow I will buy a clay one. They are harder to sell." He never wrote a single word himself. Everything we have from him was written down by his student, a young Roman named Arrian, who sat in the lectures and recorded everything. These notes became the Discourses of Epictetus, and they are still read today. In those lectures, Epictetus did not speak gently. He was direct, even blunt. He would challenge his students. He would point to their excuses and call them what they were. He would say, "You keep saying you want to be wise, but you keep acting like you don't. Which is it? He told a story about a man who had lost his son. The man was devastated. Epictetus did not say, "Don't feel sad." He said, "Remember what your son was. He was borrowed. Everything we love is borrowed from the universe. The universe lends us children and friends and health and good days. And sometimes it asks for them back. This is not cruelty. This is preparation. If you always remember that what you love is borrowed, you will love it more fiercely. You will not waste a single day taking it for granted. And when it is taken back, you will grieve, yes, but you will not be destroyed. You will know this was always the nature of love, and it was worth every moment. Part 4. A Day in Athens, Living the Stoic Way. Close your eyes for a moment. You are in Athens. It is around 250 BCE. The sun is just coming up over the Acropolis. The Parthenon is not a ruin. It is painted in bright colors, red and blue and gold. The temple of Athena gleams. The city smells of bread baking, of donkeys, of olive oil burning in lamps, of the sea just a few miles away. You are a young student. You came from a small city far away to study in Athens. Maybe you saved money for years. Maybe your family sacrificed to send you. You are here because you want to learn how to live. Your day starts before dawn, not because a clock tells you to, because the Stoics believed that the first moments of the day were sacred. They called it the morning meditation, a practice Zeno taught that every Stoic after him kept. You sit on the edge of your mat in the dark. You breathe. You think about the day ahead. What might go wrong? What challenges might appear? How will you respond if someone is rude to you? How will you respond if you get bad news? What would a wise person do in each situation? This was not anxiety. The Stoics were clear about that. You are not worrying about bad things. You are preparing for them. There is a difference. A farmer who prepares for a hard winter is not worrying. He is being wise. A soldier who practices before battle is not living in fear. He is being ready. The Stoics called this negative visualization, not because it was negative in spirit, but because you briefly imagined negative outcomes so that you were not destroyed when they appeared. And there was another reason they did it: gratitude. If you wake up in the morning and imagine, truly imagine, what it would be like to lose everything, something happens. You look around at the ordinary details of your life, and you feel a rush of thankfulness so strong it almost hurts. Your warm cloak, your bread, your friends, the fact that your eyes work and your legs work and the sun is rising again. None of this was promised. All of it is a gift. The morning meditation done, you dress and walk to the Stoa. The painted porch is already busy. Students sit on stone benches or stand in small groups. Zeno himself, older now, white-haired and thin, walks back and forth as he talks. He doesn't use notes. He doesn't give lectures in the modern sense. It's more like a long conversation that has been going on for years. Questions are asked. Zeno answers. Students argue. Zeno listens, then answers again. You sit and listen. He is talking today about the nature of good and bad. Most people, he says, think that wealth is good, that poverty is bad, that health is good and sickness is bad, that fame is good and obscurity is bad. But is this true? Has wealth ever made a person unhappy? Absolutely. Did Croesus, the richest king in history, die well? No. He died a prisoner, having lost everything. Has poverty ever produced a happy person? Also, absolutely. Diogenes the Cynic lived in a barrel and claimed to have everything he needed. Has sickness ever produced nobility? Yes. Has health ever made people arrogant and wasteful? Constantly. So wealth and poverty and health and sickness are not good or bad in themselves. They are, as the Stoics said, indifferent. What makes something truly good is only one thing: virtue. The way you choose to act, regardless of your circumstances. Courage is good. Wisdom is good. Justice is good. Self-discipline is good. These are the only true goods. And here is the extraordinary thing. These cannot be taken from you. Not by poverty, not by sickness, not by enemies, not by time. You can be poor and courageous. You can be sick and wise. You can be in prison and just. The Stoics called this the good within reach. Virtue is always available, in any situation, to any person, at any moment. This was not just philosophy, it was practical, it was survivable. After the morning lecture, you eat. The Stoics were not ascetics in the dramatic sense. They didn't starve themselves or torture their bodies, but they practiced simplicity. Zeno himself was famous for eating very little, bread and olives mostly, figs sometimes, a bit of honey, water or very weak wine. Not because food was bad, but because the Stoics wanted to be free, and excessive desire for pleasure creates dependency. If you need elaborate meals to be happy, then a day without elaborate meals is a day of suffering. Better to be content with simple things. Then abundance is a pleasure, but its absence is no disaster. The afternoon might be spent in discussion, in reading, in writing. The Stoics valued education enormously. Not education for its own sake, not to collect facts the way some people collect coins, but education as a tool for living better. They also walked. A lot. Philosophy in the ancient world was often done while walking. Something about movement and thinking seemed to go together. The rhythm of feet on stone, the changing light, the simple act of going forward. Evening came, and with it the practice that Zeno considered perhaps the most important of all. The evening review. You sit again, you breathe again. You look back over the day, not to feel guilty, not to punish yourself, simply to look clearly. Where did I live according to my values today? Where did I fall short? Why did I fall short? Was it fear? Laziness? Vanity? What would I do differently tomorrow? The Stoic teacher Seneca, centuries later, wrote about this practice. He said he did it every night before sleep. He would go through the whole day like a prosecutor examining a witness. Firmly, fairly, honestly. Why did you say that? It was unkind. Why did you eat so much? You knew you would feel worse. Why did you avoid that difficult conversation? You knew it needed to happen. But Seneca was also clear. You do this review and then you forgive yourself. You don't carry the weight of the day into tomorrow. You look clearly, you learn, you let go, and you sleep. That is how the day ends. Simple, honest, free. Part 5. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who wrote in the dark. Now we travel forward in time, 300 years after Zeno walked under his painted porch. The world has changed. Athens is still beautiful, but Rome rules everything. Roman legions have marched to Scotland in the north and Mesopotamia in the east. An empire of 50 million people stretches from the deserts of Africa to the forests of Germany. And sitting on the throne of all this is a man who did not want to be emperor. His name was Marcus Aurelius. He was born in 121 CE. He was a quiet, bookish child who loved poetry and philosophy and would rather spend the afternoon reading than watching gladiators fight. When the Emperor Hadrian noticed him, he was said to have called the boy Verissimus. the most truthful one. Marcus Aurelius became emperor in 161 CE, and immediately, almost immediately, the problems began. A massive war broke out with the Parthian Empire to the east. Then, a plague swept through the Roman world, killing millions. Then, Germanic tribes began pushing through the northern border in waves that never seemed to stop. Marcus spent most of his reign not in Rome, not in his palace with his books, but on a military campaign in the cold and mud of the Danube frontier. He was not a natural soldier. He was thin. He was often sick. He had trouble sleeping. He missed his wife and his children. But he went, every year, back to the front, because it had to be done. And at night, in his military tent, by the light of a small lamp, he wrote. He wrote in Greek, which was the language he thought in. He wrote not for anyone else to read. He wrote for himself. Reminders, arguments with himself. Attempts to stay clear when everything around him was chaotic and brutal. The notes were never published in his lifetime. They were found after his death. We call them the Meditations. They are one of the most personal and extraordinary documents in human history. They begin with a list of gratitudes. Marcus goes through the people in his life and lists what he learned from each one. From his grandfather, good temper and gentleness. From his father, modesty and a manly character. From his adopted father, Emperor Antoninus, never to take more than was needed. From his philosophy teacher, to endure pain. From another teacher, to read carefully and not to be satisfied with a surface understanding. This is not the writing of a cold man. This is a man who loved the people in his life and paid close attention to them. Then the Meditations turn to the harder work. Again and again, Marcus returns to the same themes. He is talking to himself, pushing himself, arguing with himself. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. But I have seen that the nature of good is beautiful, and the nature of evil is ugly. He is not saying, pretend people are not difficult. He knows they are difficult. He is reminding himself why he will treat them well anyway. Confine yourself to the present. He writes this, or something like it, over and over, not because he forgot, but because he kept needing to remember. There is something deeply human in that. A man who knows the truth perfectly well, who still has to keep reminding himself of it. He writes about anger. He was, apparently, someone who struggled with anger. He writes, how much more damage anger and grief do than the things that cause them. He writes about death, not with fear, with a strange, calm clarity. Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. He writes about what matters. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? Not necessary to the empire, not necessary to other people's opinions, necessary to living well, necessary to virtue. He writes about people who criticized him, who tried to undermine him, who wanted his position, who flattered him falsely. He writes, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Not because revenge was beneath him, but because he understood that becoming bitter and angry was a greater loss than whatever injury had been done. Marcus Aurelius died in 180 CE, still on campaign, still at the edge of the empire. He never retired to his books. He never got to spend his old age reading and writing in peace. But the Meditations survived, kept privately, perhaps by his son, perhaps by someone who understood what they were. What they are is this: proof that the most powerful man in the world lay awake at night worrying about whether he was being kind enough, patient enough, honest enough. Proof that power does not make you certain or fearless or complete. Proof that the Stoic work is never finished. You practice it every day. You fail some days. You get up and try again the next day. Marcus Aurelius was not a perfect man. He made mistakes. He had a son, Commodus, who became a terrible emperor after him and nearly destroyed everything Marcus had built. But he tried. Every single day in his tent by lamplight he tried, and the trying matters. Part 6. Seneca, the man who lived with the contradiction. Of all the great Stoics, Seneca is perhaps the most complicated. He was born around 4 BCE in Cordoba, in what is now Spain. He came to Rome as a young man and became a lawyer, then a writer, then a senator. He was brilliant, and everyone knew it. He was also extremely wealthy. He was, in fact, one of the richest men in Rome. And this created a problem. How do you preach simplicity when you own multiple villas? How do you write beautifully about the freedom from material things when you have more material things than almost anyone? Seneca knew this contradiction. He wrote about it directly. He was not a hypocrite who pretended not to see it. He looked at it clearly and said, "Yes, this is what I am. I am working on it." He wrote letters, hundreds of them, to a young friend named Lucilius. These letters became one of the great treasures of Latin literature. In them, Seneca is always honest about his own failings. He tells Lucilius about a day he was irritable and impatient. He tells him about a time he got swept up in a crowd's excitement and felt ashamed of himself afterward. He tells him about his fear of dying, which he struggled with his whole life. He doesn't present himself as a wise man who has arrived at wisdom. He presents himself as a person fighting toward it, still losing battles, still learning. "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," he wrote. "How many nights have you lain awake suffering from things that never actually happened? From conversations you dreaded that turned out fine, from disasters you imagined that never came." Seneca knew this trap. He fell into it himself. He wrote, "There are more things likely to frighten us than there are to crush us. We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He wrote about time. He was obsessed with time. He believed that most people wasted their lives and then complained at the end that life was short. "It is not that we have a short time to live," he wrote. "It is that we waste a great deal of it." He wrote this to Lucilius. "Reclaim yourself. Take stock of yourself. Set aside time for yourself. Spend time with people who help you become better. Welcome those who will improve you and go out to meet them." He was not just giving advice to Lucilius. He was giving it to himself. Seneca's life ended dramatically. The Emperor Nero, whom Seneca had tutored and advised and loved, turned against him. Seneca had known Nero since he was a child. He had tried to guide him. He had written speeches for him. He had hoped the boy might be a good emperor. Nero became a monster instead. When a plot to kill Nero was discovered, Seneca was accused of being involved. He may have been. Or he may simply have been old and powerful and therefore dangerous to a paranoid emperor. Nero sent soldiers with a single message: Seneca was to die. According to the Roman historian Tacitus, who was young when this happened, and gathered accounts from people who were there, Seneca received the news calmly. He had been preparing for death for years. He called for his will. The soldiers said no, There wasn't time. He smiled slightly. He turned to his friends who were weeping and said, "Where are your maxims of philosophy? Where is the reason that you have cultivated through so many years?" He said, "I leave you as the best possession I have, the image of my life." He opened his veins himself. He was old and the blood came slowly. He asked for poison. That too was slow. Finally, he was placed in a bath of hot water, which quickened it. His wife Paulina loved him so much that she tried to die with him. The soldiers stopped her. She survived and lived for many years after, pale for the rest of her life from that day. Seneca died at around 65 years old, still thinking, still talking. His friends said he kept dictating words to a scribe right up until the very end. He had written, "The brave man is not the one who does not feel fear. The brave man is the one who overcomes fear." He overcame it. Part 7. What the Stoics did with grief and loss. Here we need to stop and say something important. There is a misunderstanding about Stoics that causes real harm when people try to practice their philosophy. The misunderstanding is this: Stoics didn't grieve. This is completely false. Stoics grieved. They wept. They felt the full weight of loss. They missed the people they loved with every part of themselves. What they tried not to do was add unnecessary suffering on top of necessary suffering. There is a grief that is real and right. When someone you love dies, grief is the natural response of a loving heart. The Stoics honored this grief. They did not try to stop it or shame it. What they worked against was the grief that we add ourselves. The suffering that comes from saying, "This should not have happened. This is wrong. This is unfair. I cannot go on." They looked at these thoughts and asked, "Are they true? Is it true that this should not have happened? Things happen. All things happen. Is it true that you cannot go on? People have gone on from worse. You probably can too. Is it true that this is wrong? The universe does not run according to our ideas of fairness. That is a hard truth. But it is a truth. Chrysippus, one of the early Stoic philosophers, is said to have wept at a friend's funeral. Someone challenged him. "Isn't this unstoic? Don't you believe that death is not a bad thing?" Chrysippus replied, "I believe that death is not a bad thing. I also loved my friend. These are both true at the same time." Cato, the Roman senator who was one of the most famous Stoics in history, lived through the collapse of the Roman Republic. He watched everything he had devoted his life to be destroyed. He chose to die rather than live under Caesar's dictatorship. He spent his last night reading Plato's Phaedo, a dialogue about the immortality of the soul. His friends tried to stay with him. He sent them away. He read until the early hours of the morning. He slept briefly. He woke and tried to take his own life and wounded himself badly. His doctor tried to treat him. Cato refused. He died that morning. Was he broken? Was he in despair? No. He was making a choice. On his terms, according to his values, in a situation where everything external had been stripped away. That is what the Stoics meant when they said, "The last freedom is always yours." Not a dramatic freedom, not a revolutionary freedom. Simply the freedom of how you choose to be in this moment, in this body, in these exact circumstances. Part 8. The Stoic practices you can use tonight. The Stoics were not just theorists, they were practitioners. Every idea they had came with a practice, something to do, something concrete. Here are the practices they used. The first is the morning meditation. Every morning, before you do anything else, sit quietly for a few minutes. Think about the day ahead. What might challenge you? How will you respond? What does a wise person do in each situation? Marcus Aurelius did this before he got up. Seneca did this before he began his work. Epictetus taught this to every student. It does not take long. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but it changes the shape of your day. The second is the evening review. Every night, before sleep, you look back at the day, not with guilt, with clarity. What went well? What could have gone better? What will you try tomorrow? Seneca wrote about this in one of his letters. He said he examines his whole day before sleep and makes a reckoning with himself. This practice also helps with sleep. Instead of letting the day spin unprocessed through your mind all night, you process it consciously before you lie down. You look at it, learn from it, and let it go. The third practice is called memento mori. Remember that you will die. This sounds dark. The Stoics did not mean it darkly. They meant it as an invitation to live now, not someday. Now. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Of human life, the time is a point, and the substance is in a flux, and the perception dull, and the composition of the whole body subject to putrefaction." That is a very philosophical way of saying, you are here for a moment, in a body that will not last, in a world that keeps changing. So, what are you waiting for? The fourth practice is called amor fati, love of fate. This is the hardest one. It means not just accepting what happens to you, not just tolerating it, actually loving it. Not because everything that happens is pleasant, but because everything that happens is real. It is your life. It is the material you have to work with. The Stoics said, an actor who gets a short part in a play performs that short part brilliantly. He does not wish for a longer part. He does the part he has with everything he has. You have the life you have, the body you have, the circumstances you have. Amor fati says, this is perfect, not because it is easy or fair, but because it is yours, and you are going to make something beautiful with it. The fifth practice is sympatheia, the feeling of connection. The Stoics believed that every human being is connected, that the logos inside you is the same logos inside every other person you will ever meet. That we are, in some deep sense, one thing. When someone is cruel to you, you can think, this person is also struggling. This person is also trying to find their way. This person is also capable of wisdom, even if they are not using it right now. This does not mean you accept cruelty. Stoics were not doormats. But it means you do not meet cruelty with cruelty. You do not become what hurt you. And in your moments of peace, lying here tonight, you can feel that connection. Every person breathing right now in this world, struggling and loving and doubting and hoping, all of them with the same spark inside, all of them trying. You are not alone in this. Part 9. The Woman Stoics Now. Let's talk about something that gets left out of many Stoic books. The Stoics believed explicitly that women were capable of virtue and wisdom. They said this clearly, which made them unusual in the ancient world. Musonius Rufus, the teacher of Epictetus, wrote an essay called "Should Women Also Do Philosophy?" And his answer was, absolutely, obviously, yes. He argued that women and men have the same capacity for reason, the same capacity for virtue, the same need for philosophical training. A woman who is not educated in philosophy is missing something she needs. He said, What is the point of teaching your daughter to spin wool if you do not also teach her to be good? This was radical in ancient Rome. We know the names of some Stoic women. Portia was the daughter of Cato, the Stoic senator we met earlier. She was also the wife of Brutus, who was involved in the assassination of Julius Caesar. When Brutus was planning something dangerous and wouldn't tell her what, Portia did something remarkable. To prove to him that she could keep secrets, that she had the Stoic discipline of a Stoic philosopher, she took a knife and cut her own thigh. She didn't tell him. She bled and kept working and said nothing. When Brutus found the wound, she said, "I wanted you to know that I can bear pain, so you can trust me with your secrets." This is an extreme story, but it shows a woman who considered herself a Stoic practitioner in every way. Paulina, Seneca's wife, we have already met. She tried to die with her husband. When she was saved against her will, she did not become bitter. She lived out the rest of her years with what witnesses called remarkable dignity. The Stoics gave women a vocabulary for inner freedom. In a world where women had very limited external freedom, the Stoic idea that your inner life was your own, that no external circumstance could define you, was not just philosophy. It was survival. Part 10. How the Stoics changed the world. Let's take a step back and look at what Zeno started. One man, a shipwreck, a bookshop, a walk under a painted porch. From that beginning, a school of thought spread across the ancient Mediterranean world. It lasted for 600 years in its original form, and then it went underground. It survived in monasteries, in the writings of early Christian philosophers who borrowed heavily from Stoic ideas, in the common sense advice of parents to children across centuries, in soldiers preparing for battle, in farmers enduring hard winters. It came back into the open during the Renaissance when scholars rediscovered the ancient texts. Montaigne, the great French essayist, was deeply Stoic. Descartes had Stoic elements. Shakespeare knew the ideas. In the 18th century, the American founding fathers were steeped in Stoicism. George Washington had a play about Cato performed for his troops at Valley Forge when morale was at its lowest. He wanted them to see what a man looked like when he held his principles under impossible pressure. And then, in the 20th century, something extraordinary happened. A psychologist named Albert Ellis was trying to help patients with anxiety and depression. He looked at ancient Stoic philosophy and he thought, this is it. This is how the mind works. He developed rational emotive behavior therapy, which became the foundation for cognitive behavioral therapy, which is now one of the most evidence-based treatments for anxiety, depression, and trauma in the world. CBT works fundamentally on the Stoic insight. It is not events that disturb us. It is our interpretation of events. You cannot always change what happens, but you can examine your interpretation of it. You can ask, is this thought true? Is it helpful? Is there another way to see this? That is Epictetus in a therapist's office 2,000 years later. And today, Stoicism is experiencing a renaissance. Millions of people are reading Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus and Seneca, not as ancient curiosities, as living guides. Athletes use Stoic practices to stay calm under pressure. Military commanders use them to keep clear heads in crisis. Surgeons, parents, teachers, and artists use them every day because the insights are not historical. They are timeless. Because nothing essential about being human has changed. We still love things that can be lost. We still fear the future. We still struggle with other people. We still feel small in a universe we cannot control. And we still have the same choice that Zeno had on that beach in Athens. We can build our lives on the things outside us and be shaken every time they shake. Or we can build on the one thing that never moves, the quiet, steady place inside, the captain, the modern mirror, what the Stoics knew about you. You live in a different world than they did. You have electric light and medicine and the internet and every kind of food available every hour of the day. And yet you understand exactly what Seneca meant when he wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." You know what it is to lie awake at 3 in the morning being crushed by something that hasn't happened yet, something that might not happen, something you are creating in your mind right now in detail, with perfect emotional reality, even though it is not real. Your ancestors did this too. They lay awake in caves, in huts, in tents, worrying about the winter, about the enemy, about the child who was sick, about the harvest. The content changes. The mechanism is the same. And Seneca sat with his lamp and his scrolls and wrote, "This is what we do. This is our nature. And here is how to work with it." You also know what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote about people who are meddling and ungrateful and arrogant. You have met those people. You encounter them every day. Online, in traffic, in offices and families and friendships. And Marcus, the most powerful man in the world, had to remind himself every morning, these people are part of the same world I am. They are also struggling. How I respond to them is mine to choose. You also know what Epictetus was talking about when he said, "There are things in your control and things not in your control." You feel this when the news is overwhelming and you can't fix the world. When a relationship ends and you couldn't stop it. When your body does something you didn't ask it to do. Epictetus was not telling you not to care. He was telling you where to put your energy. You cannot fix the world tonight, but you can choose how to be in it. You cannot control tomorrow, but you can choose to be present right now. You cannot change what happened today, but you can look at it clearly, learn from it, and then let it go. The Stoics did not promise an easy life. They promised a free one. Not free from difficulty, free from being defined by difficulty. There is a difference, and it matters more than almost anything else. The sleep transition. The lamp is still burning. Somewhere in the ancient world, a lamp is burning. It is small, made of clay, burning olive oil. It throws a circle of warm yellow light against a stone wall. Inside that circle sits a man with a wax tablet. He is writing. The words are small and careful. He has been writing for hours since the camp grew quiet and the soldiers around him fell asleep. He writes, "Confine yourself to the present." He pauses. He looks at the word. He closes his eyes. Outside the tent, the Danube River is moving in the darkness. The Germanic forests stretch away on the other side. Somewhere in those forests, men are sharpening weapons. Somewhere in Rome, politicians are plotting. Somewhere, his son is growing up without him. He writes, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." He breathes, he puts down his tablet, he sleeps. Tomorrow the battles will resume. The empire will demand something more of him. The winter will be cold, and the roads will be muddy, and there will be decisions to make that no one else can make. But tonight, in the circle of lamplight, he did the work that mattered most to him. He was honest with himself. He tried. You have done the same thing today, not perfectly. No one does it perfectly. Not Marcus Aurelius, not Seneca, not Epictetus. But you lived through it. You thought about what mattered. You tried to be a little more patient, a little more present, a little more free from the things that don't truly matter. That is enough. That is more than enough. The Stoics would not tell you to lie awake reviewing every failure of the day. They would say, look clearly, forgive yourself, let it go, let it go. The lamp Marcus Aurelius burned has long gone out. The tent has rotted. The Danube still flows. The stars above you now are the same stars that were above his tent, above Seneca's villa, above Epictetus's tiny house in Nicopolis. They have been watching over human beings, trying to live well for every night of human history. They are watching now. You are part of that long line. Every person who ever lay in the dark wondering if they were doing enough, if they were being good enough, if things would be okay. Zeno swam to shore with nothing and built a philosophy that outlasted empires. Epictetus sat in chains and understood that no chain could touch the most important part of him. Marcus Aurelius sat in the mud and cold at the edge of his world and wrote private notes to himself about trying to be kinder. They were not superheroes. They were people. People who kept practicing. You are practicing too. The practice is not finished. It is never finished. That is okay. That is the point. Every morning you wake up, you get another chance to try. But not now. Now the day is done. Now the thoughts can slow. Now the captain of the ship can rest, knowing the ship is still afloat. Tomorrow there will be more to do, more to practice, more to learn. But the night is for rest, and you have earned it. Close your eyes. Let your body be heavy. Let your breathing slow. Somewhere far away, across 2,000 years, a circle of lamplight is fading, and a philosopher is sleeping, and the stars are still there. And the morning will come when it comes. For now, you are here. You are safe. You are resting. That is enough. That has always been enough. Sleep well.